Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Business Essentials podcast. I'm your host, Veronika, and today we're going to be speaking with Jenn Espinosa-Goswami. Jenn is a speaking coach. She helps her clients know what to say, how to say it, and who to say it to. Learning how to speak better is something I definitely want to do. So if you're like me and you want to learn how to get confidence on camera, stick around and I'll be back with Jenn right after this. Guys, before I cut to the intro, I wanted to let you know that I'm working on some exclusive content that's only going to be available to people on our mailing list. If you're an entrepreneur and looking to start a business, or you just have a passion project that you want to get off the ground, you're not going to want to miss any of this content. So go to thebusinessessentials.com and sign up today. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program.
Tony Robbins once said, "No matter how many mistakes you make or how slow you progress, you are still way ahead of everyone who isn't trying." This is the Biz Essentials. You want to grow, get ahead, keep the spark. Here you'll get valuable insights and empowerment to grow personally and professionally. Isn't it about time you turn your dreams into successful passion projects? Learn how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself. The B Essentials. This is the Biz Essentials. And this is your host, Veronika of Veronika Ventures.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Jenn. Jenn, I'm so excited to get started. But before I get started with all of my questions, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Well, I'd love to. So first of all, anyone can be a confident speaker, even if you shake and are fearful of speaking. So I'd love to throw that out there to begin with. Everyone is in the right place and can learn how to speak better. So my journey started about 10 years ago or so. I had been working in corporate and I joined Toastmasters International, which is the public speaking organization, because I was not getting my needs fulfilled at my corporate job. I did a lot of data analysis, a lot of documentation of case studies. I worked in finance, so very data-driven type of work. And I didn't have a lot of human connection in my job. So I wanted to improve myself. I had already received my master's degree in leadership, and I'm like, what else can I do? I joined a public speaking group. It turns out that my skill set is pretty strong in speaking because I would have consistently good feedback reviews and recommendations from people within my group. But it took me several years to start sharing more personal stories within Toastmasters. And at the end of one of my most personal stories about my experiences being fat shamed and bullied as a child for being obese, one of my mentors came up to me and she said, "I really am touched by your story and I want to change my health for the better." And that was the seed being planted for me of I can become a professional speaker because my words have impact. And even just in 5 to 7 minutes of speaking within an organization that many people belong to, change can happen. So I started my business Weightless as a professional speaking organization, providing health and wellness seminars to different companies here in the Twin Cities and virtually during the pandemic. And eventually I realized that, my audience wants to take action on what I'm sharing, these messages and stories I'm sharing. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll become a coach. So this past year I became certified as a holistic coach, which identifies that our lives are very interconnected and interwoven. And no matter what sphere of life we're focusing on, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, career, or relationship, they all go hand in hand. So I love serving my clients in not just how to be better speakers, but also how to be more confident in how they show up, and also how to lean into their natural strengths as individuals so they can grow professionally and personally.
I love everything you just said. No, because that's very much my belief too, is everyone is destined for something. There's a reason you have those passions and those drives, so you need to pursue them. And the fact that it's ever evolving. I love how your story evolves from I wanted to do something more fulfilling to I became a speaker to now I'm a speaker and a coach. So that's awesome. And then you had mentioned leadership. There's a quote on your website that I absolutely love that says, "Leadership incorporates the power of listening with the power of speaking." And so One thing that I would eventually love to do is become a speaker. I too have a story, and I totally can relate to yours because up until about 2 years ago, I was 300 pounds. So, yeah.
Oh, we have to talk more.
Yeah, right. And so I really want to hear how do you begin with your clients who want to learn how to speak more clearly or more confidently? And how would you suggest that our listeners or even myself can begin that process?
That's a really great question. And I really help walk people through this process over the course of 6 weeks in my main program, which is called Confidence on Camera. And it can help anyone, not just business owners. It could also help people who are working within a corporate setting, but are afraid to speak up for various reasons. Maybe they turn their camera off during meetings. Maybe they don't feel like they can get a word in edgewise. I can speak today. But it's all about the presence you bring to whatever setting you're finding yourself within. And I guide people through creating videos that are short, clear messages that their people can connect with. And when I say their people, it just depends on who you're sharing your message with, who needs to hear what you have to say. So what I've noticed, both from my background in education as a leadership degree, I learned a lot of things about the difference between coaching and consulting. And I also learned about leadership through my corporate experience and also as an entrepreneur. So what I can say about leadership is there are 3 things that leaders share. And those tend to be the confidence to show up fully as they are without apology. The second one would be clarity in their messaging. They know what they're trying to say. They know who they're saying it to. And the third one is a clear call to action, because leadership does not exist in a vacuum. And it doesn't matter if you have all these wonderful thoughts and philosophies unless you're compelling someone to take action on making a change that improves mankind or even just yourself as an individual. So those are the 3 things I'm noticing leaders share. And I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, then you have a mission, you have a passion, and you have someone you want to share that with. So you are a leader simply for having those things. I can help you get to the path of speaking your truth as a leader so that people will connect with you.
Awesome. Through your program, do you take them through the way they speak and the message as well, or just showing up confidently, or all 3?
I'm glad you asked that question because it comes up a lot. A lot of people are like, well, I speak okay, I'm fine, I'm confident enough. I don't like that phrase, enough. However, the way you get clarity on your message is you are able to say it succinctly. So I provide you a structure. I have a free resource called Structure Your Speech for Success checklist. So if you're a checklist kind of person, you're like, just tell me the things that I need to get the words across or to communicate clearly, that resource is for you. It includes all the things you need to structure your next talk. And when I say talk, it could be a podcast interview. It could be a webinar that you're hosting. It could be a presentation you're preparing for. It could even be a TED Talk. But there's a certain structure that speakers follow, no matter where they're speaking or who they're speaking to, in order to get the message clearly across and provide a roadmap for your audience to know what that next action step is. So that's a resource that I provide to people. And also, as I work through people one-on-one and individually, confidence will come up. It's something that doesn't get strong from nothing. So we practice delivering these messages week after week. So not only do you have the structure and the clarity around how you build that structure in the speech, you also get the opportunity to practice and receive feedback on what's going really well and what's not going well. And I do want to throw this out there. Like if you're a Toastmasters person, this is not a Toastmasters type of feedback where I say, oh, you said 3 times, or you stumbled on this, or it's not that type of feedback. It's the kind of feedback that if I was on Facebook scrolling through and saw you presenting something, here is the impression I would have of your message and who you're speaking to, because that's the message that's most important. We will stumble, we will fail as speakers in life, in business, in everything in life. What's important is, did the message come through? Did the main purpose of your talk come through? And how is it landing with your audience? I help people with both of those things.
That's absolutely true, and a fantastic point of view, because often we don't consider how our message is being received, which is the part that we need to consider the most, right? Because we know what we want to convey, but that always is what's heard. So that's really interesting. And great to have that feedback. For me, obviously, confidence was a huge thing. I can do interviews a lot better than I could do speaking by myself. And I think it's because when we're doing interviews, you have to pause to listen to the other person. And while you're doing so, you're kind of a little bit taking a breath, formulating your thoughts, and then you can continue. And there's not so much pressure on you. But one thing that I do terribly, as you can probably tell, is I speak really fast. I speak really fast naturally. And then when I get nervous, it ramps up another 50%. Have you had other clients who have had that issue? And how would you recommend getting past something like that? Something that's more on the surface that people really need to get over, because I need to learn how to slow down.
Yeah, so speaking fast is a problem I have as well. You may not hear it today because I've learned the art of modulation and pacing and all those sorts of things. But pauses are a technique I actually encourage many people to use, even when they're the only one on camera. So you mentioned during an interview setting, you wait, you listen to the question, and then you have an opportunity to think through what you're doing. The same thing is true when you're speaking or the only one showing up to present something. Take those pauses. Let your audience catch up to you. And yes, it will be uncomfortable at first because you're like, oh, dead air, I can't do that. It's okay, because as people are listening to you, chances are good they're multitasking. Maybe they're washing dishes, maybe they're caring for young children, maybe they're listening to something else at the same time. I mean, we multitask. So if you incorporate pauses strategically within what you're trying to convey, they will pause with you. So it's almost like you're having an interview with that person who's listening to you. And learning when to pause is also part of the technique of structuring your speech. There are some good places to pause and other places not to pause, especially if you're a person who's sharing a very emotional story. And I have a story of losing 100 pounds, probably similar to what you experienced, Veronika, in terms of losing a bunch of weight and everything that goes into that. Part of that could be some very strong emotional challenges that came up, or some realizations of why you were where you were. When you have a really emotional story, it can be difficult to talk about, but that's the most important time to incorporate pausing so you can catch your breath, so you can take a pause with yourself and just be in that feeling. And that's self-honoring for yourself as a leader as well.
That's awesome. And I could tell when you were pausing, I'm like, ooh, dramatic pause. Ooh, dramatic pause. Like it really emphasized what you were saying. And I was paying attention because that's what you were speaking about. But I'm sure you were doing it the whole time and I just didn't even notice, but my brain did. You know, it helps people process. So that's absolutely something that I need to take into account. Pause. I'm just kidding.
That was a great pause.
I know, right? And so going through your program then, like for example, myself, I do not have a keynote speech or a TED Talk. I would love to, because I think that eventually I would love to go that route. Is that something that I could work through your program?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that because that's a need I see a lot of people asking. They're like, I have this one talk I'm preparing, whether it's a keynote or a TED Talk, or someone asked me to be on their stage. What do I do, Jen? Well, I don't do that in my Confidence on Camera program, but I will be launching in December of 2021 this amazing mastermind. Because one of the gaps I saw as a professional speaker when I first started my business was you can find all sorts of opportunities to improve your speaking technique through like Toastmasters and some other groups that exist. Or you could find some amazing coaching resources to help you build your speaking business. But there's not a single program that I have found that combines both worlds where you're like, okay, I know I want to use speaking within my business or to build this passion project I'm working on, maybe as a side hustle. I want to use speaking as a vehicle or a marketing mode for myself. And I also want to become a better speaker. That doesn't exist. So I'm going to create it. Being the entrepreneur I am, I'm going to create a resource for that where it combines coaching, it combines training, it combines helping you find those speaking leads, because there are many opportunities to speak, but it has to align with what works for you. You mentioned you prefer interviews. Well, there are radio interviews, there are TV interviews, there are podcast interviews. But suppose you want to be on the big stage and you want to do a keynote presentation. The way you seek out those opportunities is way different than seeking out a podcast interview. So understanding that you have an ideal speaking vision that you want to convey your message through. And there could be multiple, but there's probably one that really stands out for you. The way you approach that type of business or adding that to your business model will be different depending on what you would like to convey and what style. There's different speaking styles. Like, for example, I'm more of a workshop presenter, but I also do a lot of interviews. And I know the differences and the nuances between the different types of presenting for each of those things. That's part of learning it, but I can help walk you through it so that you're clear before you show up what you need to talk about.
Wow, that sounds amazing. No, I totally need this in my life. When someone decides that they want to be a better speaker, if someone wanted to try to improve their speaking skills, is not quite ready to get a speaking coach, are there any tips and tricks that you can give us that will help us improve until we're ready to pursue it more professionally?
Oh, that's a great question. So practice makes performance is what I like to say. So
I love it.
Practice, practice, practice. And there's no like right time to seek out a coach. Obviously, if you have a talk scheduled in the future and you're like, I need support, that's an immediate, I need to work with someone. But you can always practice your techniques on your own, which is why I turned to video marketing as well. Do you know that video is likely to be watched 3 times more than a written resource in the same page? So if someone navigates to a website page, there's a written transcript and there's a video, people will click on the video more than they'll read the resource, which for me is interesting. I'm very visual, so I will read faster than I'll listen to a video. But the research is out there. And if you are not using video within your business, you are missing some huge opportunities in terms of reach, in terms of convenience for you, because you are only one person and you only have so many hours to market and share your business messages. So why not record a 2-minute video that does the work for you over and over and over again? And you can do it very low cost. That's one of the free resources I provide in my programs is free and low cost speaker tools where you can show up even before you have this big stage that you're rocking, or even before you feel comfortable trying to get a TV or radio spot. Those are kind of a big time for some of us and can be intimidating. You can still pop out your phone and record a 5-minute video and have greater reach than Like, people might not show up during that actual video as you're recording it. If you're doing it live, that's okay. Your message can still be felt 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now. I still have people reaching out to me about videos I recorded, very low cost, low budget videos in my car while I was picking up my children from school. I would record a video and people still comment on my car videos. So you don't have to have the big production. You don't need a huge story. You need to be willing to show up consistently enough where people know how to find you.
Yes, and absolutely. I too believe very much in video. I did a short video on it on my YouTube channel, but I was going to say, I've also heard that the human brain processes video 60 times faster than they do text. So when you're listening to the video, not only is the company able to convey more information with emotion, but also the listener is processing it better than they would the text. So that's a great way not only to get practice, but like you said, convey your message. I'm definitely going to try that. And that's part of these interviews. Really, I just want to practice my speaking. I'm just kidding.
You're doing a great job, Veronika.
Thank you. That's only because I know that I can delete it if I need to.
Editing is part of the process, but even if you're not editing, raw video has its place as well.
That's true. Very true. And eventually, I actually would like to move live. I just need a little bit more practice before I do so. I think people are more forgiving when you're live. When it's recorded, they're expecting a little bit more perfection. When you go live, they're like, oh, okay, it's live. It's all right. But so maybe I'll just move to it quicker. We were talking about your programs. Where can our listeners find you if they want to have more information about you or your programs that you're running?
Yeah, come visit me at weightlesschronicles.com. You see behind me, weightless, not weight loss. That's a different part of my business, but weightlesschronicles.com. If you're on Instagram, I'm at Jenn with 2 N's, Spingo. And I'm also on YouTube. Surprise, surprise. I have a video library, which is why I teach you how to create a video library. So you can visit me at any of those places.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are listening to this and might not have a pen handy, all of those links will be in the show notes. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on today before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to share that confidence is a muscle. And you grow that muscle through practice and rehearsal. Even if it feels scary at first, you're a little wobbly, maybe your muscles haven't been used in a while, and it feels intimidating and scary. The more you practice, the more likely you are going to push through and build and strengthen that confidence muscle. It's not something you're born with. It's something you create as you go along. If you'd like my support with that, I'm happy to help you.
That's a really good point, because a lot of people will say, well, I'm just not good at speaking. The more you do it, the better you get. And I'm evidence of that, because I've done all these interviews and I'm like, wow, these are getting better every time. No,
That's the goal, right?
Right. Don't want to go backwards, want to go forward. So I look forward to seeing your new programs come out in December as well.
Thank you. I look forward to you realizing your speaker vision as the leader that you are.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Jenn, I want to thank you so much for your time and all of that wonderful insight. I learned a lot, and I hope our listeners did too. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll be back to wrap up the show right after this. I love that conversation with Jenn, and I definitely need to learn how to slow down and pause for emphasis. So I'm going to be working on that, and I think I'll practice by making some videos. If you would like to learn how to get confidence on camera and some clarity around your message, connect with Jenn. All of her information is in the show notes. Anyway, guys, thanks again so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on the Biz Essentials.
You've been listening to the Biz Essentials. Thanks for listening to the show. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information, learning how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself, and turning your dreams into successful passion projects. By listening to this show, you've already set into motion the most important part, starting. So it's important to catch the next episode. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. In the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Veronika Ventures and at the Biz Essentials. Till next time, this is the Biz Essentials.
Today's quote of the day is by Maya Angelou. She once said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Anyway, guys, thanks again for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time on the Biz Essentials. Bye.